Okay, so we're still dealing with slope. And again, is this the best teaching I've ever done with this? No. I'll go into a lot more detail if I was teaching algebra next year. So, one way to find slope is the basic counting on a graph. We count with rise divided by run. Both of these can move two directions because our y-axis can go both vertical, which is up and down, and our run, which is our x-axis, can go both left and right, which is horizontal. Okay? Then we said, okay, what truly is rise over run? Well, it's the difference in our y points divided by the difference in the x points. Y subset 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, neither of these give us an equation. There are three different types of equations that that whoever your algebra teacher is going to talk about next year for linear equations. There is standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. There is point slope form, which, let's see if I can remember this. I think it is y2 minus y1 equals m times x2 minus x1. I hope. I'm trying to remember if that's correct or not. It might be wrong. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head. Might be wrong. But then, the most important is slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is in the form of y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx. Man, I don't even have, hold on. So there was a slight delay because I wanted to double check to make sure that I was remembering correctly. Guess what? I was. Yes. So slope-intercept form is the form that we're going to use the most. Slope-intercept form, when it's in this form, when I have y isolated, tells me that my m is the slope, which is in the form of rise divided by run. That means slope should be a fraction. And then we've got this positive b, which doesn't have to be positive, but this is called the y-intercept. If it's in slope-intercept form immediately, you will be able to tell me what the slope of the equation is. So if I'm asking you what's the slope, which is extremely important to graphing, you're going to need the slope. So watch what we're going to do. So it's going to say find slope. And then I'm going to have an equation that looks like y equals negative 1/3 x plus 7. And I'm going to say, okay, what's the slope? Well, you're going to say, okay, is it in y equals mx plus b? Y equals mx plus b. Oh, wait a minute. My m is negative 1/3. Therefore, if you remember that first day, I said, hey, m means slope. M is now my slope. M is negative 1/3. That means if I were to graph this, the line would be going downhill. We didn't talk about this on, I guess, Wednesday when I posted the video. But let's say we have something like this. Y equals negative 3. This is actually in slope-intercept form too. Y equals mx plus b. Well, this is matching up with my b. Do we have any x's? Well, no. So that really means that I have y equals 0x minus 3. If there's no x in a linear equation, that means that my slope is 0, which means that it's going horizontally. Again, this is a very rough, quick teach of it. but it's enough to get you into slope-intercept form. Y equals 5x minus 2/3. You should be able to say, okay, y equals mx plus b. Well, even though this is a minus, that's fine. My m is 5. So is that the slope? Sure. For graphing purposes, this is not what I want. I want rise divided by run. The slope is truly 5 divided by 1. Either are correct. You'll more often than not see it as m equals 5, but you need to get into the the habit of having a denominator with your slope. Mr. H, what happens if it's not in slope-intercept form? Great question. 3x minus 2y equals 6. This is why, if you remember back a couple weeks, we did literal equations. The goal is to get it into slope-intercept form. That means we need to isolate the y. In order for us to get the y by itself, we need to move everything else. So the everything else is this 3x. So to start, I'm going to say, hey, it's positive. To get that to be 0, I subtract 3x. 3x minus 3x is 0. All of this comes down. Remember, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So I want to keep the x term closest to the equal sign. It's a positive 6. I cannot combine those. Why? Because they're not like terms. Last but not least, to get y by itself, I need to divide by -2. And this is where, I showed you in that literal equations video that we're not dividing the whole thing by -2. We're dividing each individual term by -2. And this is where it's important. -2 divided by -2 is positive 1y. -3 divided by -2 is positive 3/2 x minus 3. Where'd you get minus 3 from, Mr. H? Positive 6 divided by -2. So now y equals mx. M is 3/2. So I haven't done this very often. Go to Google, type in CUDA software, finding slope. You should get slopes from graphs. You should get slopes from equations with points. You should get slope from slope-intercept form. I would try some of those and ask for help if you don't understand. This is our third final video for the week. Next week we get to graphing from slope-intercept form.